Welcome back to Tiny Blue Games. My name is, of course, Csaw or Chris, and today we're talking about Guild Wars 2 in 2024. Today we're going to be talking about Janthir Wilds, the 5th expansion for Guild Wars 2. It released just recently this week, from when this video will go out, I believe. And I've really just been casually dipping my toes into the expansion. I'm definitely not one of those players that goes through the entire expansion over the first couple of days. I like to really take my time with it and kind of play a little bit here and there. And with that, I've really just done kind of the first couple story instances and explored the first zone. So I kind of wanted to give my initial impressions of the expansion, how I think it's doing, how I think it compares to the most recent Secret of the Obscure expansion, which was kind of the first of their smaller expansions, and then how it compares to some of the larger expansions as well. Before we get into that, though, I should mention I am a Guild Wars 2 or ArenaNet partner. Does that mean I won't say the bad? No, I'll say the good, I'll say the bad, I'll say the normal. But it does mean there are 2 referral or sponsored links in the description section below. You can use these links to either try out the game for free or to purchase the new expansions, and both links do support the channel. So if you are interested, please consider giving them a try. With that said, though, let's get into the video. So I guess I should frame this by talking about the Secrets of the Obscure first. The Secrets of the Obscure is my least favorite Guild Wars 2 expansion. And I don't think I'm probably the only one that feels that way about it. I don't think it's like, the sentiment of the entire community. But there was some things I didn't love about it. And to be very clear, it was not the fact that it was like a short expansion, right? That was kind of the big concern going into it, is that they were doing these new, shorter 1-year expansion cycles, and we weren't getting, a whole bunch of new stuff. We weren't getting elite specs. And people were concerned it wasn't going to feel like an expansion. And I don't think that was the case. I think it did feel like an expansion. It just wasn't an expansion that I really enjoyed that much. It's hard to really put my finger on what I didn't like, but I'll boil it down to a couple points. I think number 1, I didn't love the story and the setting very much. And it's interesting because I've been dying for them to do something with the Wizard Tower since watching like an hour-long Wooden Potatoes video. But I didn't love the actual surrounding maps and kind of story that was told with it. I think the cryptists were interesting, but they got tiresome, even for someone who was playing very casually. I couldn't imagine being someone who played Guild Wars 2 as your absolute main game. You're probably ecstatic to not see cryptists at the moment, and the exact same force that you saw before. The maps themselves were dark and dreary, a lot of them, especially kind of the end game zones where you'd be hanging out a lot. And that's cool for story progression, but can be kind of tiring if that's all you're seeing. It was a lot of the same muted gray color too. It just wasn't very nice that way. And then story beats, I wasn't connected to the story as much as I have been to others. Some of that would be maybe the lack of some of our past characters. And some of that might have just been the story direction of it and not connecting with the villain as much and stuff like that. So I don't know. The story is a little bit complicated. I think it was still delivered in a pretty successful way. It just didn't resonate as much with me. And then the last thing I'll mention, because I do know this is a video about the new expansion, not the previous expansion, is the infamous story green bar that you have to fill up that was super overused in this expansion. It's something that's been in a lot of the most recent expansions, where you get to a story step and they put this green bar that you need to go and do a variety of activities on a new map, specifically events and stuff like that, to fill up before you can progress the story. And it has never been my favorite thing, but I feel like it was used so much in this expansion that it kind of became a joke at points, where I was like, all right, and now we've done 2 quests and it is time for us to deal with the green bar again. And it felt very counter what Guild Wars 2 was trying to do when it was very much introduced to the MMO community, where it was trying to undo a lot of things that previous MMOs did. And systems like that are exactly what previous MMOs do to try and force you to explore or take your time and stuff like that. So that was something I didn't love. But yeah, that's enough about the previous expansion. The main reason I'm mentioning this is because despite all those things, I do not think that a short expansion can't be good. I think there were things that, even if that was a long expansion, those are elements that could have still been bad and could have been even worse because they would have gone on for like way longer than just a year. So that's kind of the framing we're going to go into this. Let's talk a bit about the new expansion now, though. So as mentioned, the new expansion is Janthir Wilds. It is again a short expansion. It is focused on a new area, which is common to all expansions. It has new story. The big things we'll be getting are spears, homesteads or player housing, and the Warclaw mount. I haven't gotten all of those things at this point. The big ones we'll be talking about kind of are the actual new area, the story, the Warclaw a bit, and just some of the general exploration and pacing of the expansion. So the first mission we get is a mission to go and round up everyone and have a big chat about kind of what happened in Secrets of the Obscure, and about why we need to go to Janthir, right? Because there has to be something that kicks this off. There were some elements I liked about this. Number one, you go to your own race's, kind of leaders and, introduce the idea that this is happening and go to the big meeting with them, which is really cool. I think whenever games understand that, you are a part of a tribe of people or race, and actually acknowledge that in story steps and make it different depending on the choices you've made, that feels really cool. So, some people were starting in the Sylvari main city. Some people were starting in the Norn main city, which is what I was doing. So that was a really cool thing. The actual first mission is literally just a big meeting. And with that, I will say it's exciting because you get to hear from a lot of people from the previous expansion, but also old characters that you haven't chatted with since a lot of previous expansions, which is great. I think it's really good that they're acknowledging what's happened in past expansions, but it was pretty boring. I'm someone who's like medium interested in the lore of Guild Wars 2, and I found it to be a pretty boring way to start the expansion because it's not short. It's like, probably 30 minutes. You could probably get that down a lot if you were just skipping everything, but then it would be extremely boring. If you were someone who had never played Guild Wars 2 and you were coming into that, it would feel, I just think, horribly boring to sit through versus other expansion entries for a lot of MMOs where it's full of action and something cool happens. This was not that case. This was like a big meeting and we were like, oh, we should go check out this new area. And then we go and check out the new area, which, it's whatever. But it was kind of boring. What I will also say about it is that, it is very reliant on you having played Secrets of the Obscure because the big guest of the meeting are the people that we met in Secrets of the Obscure. We're kind of introducing that to the rest of Tyria. Which is kind of, again, counter the design that Guild Wars 2 usually goes with their expansions. The idea is that you don't need to have played the previous expansion to really get the most out of the new expansion. And I'd say there's definitely some leading story there that you're not going to understand if you haven't played Secrets of the Obscure, which is a little bizarre. What I will say, though, is that first mission is kind of all of the bad I really have to say about this expansion. And I know I've already made this video like so front-loaded with like bad stuff. It's time to get into the good stuff. What is the Janthir Wilds, strengths? Well, it's the map, it's the story, it's the beauty. Like, we come to this first map, the Lowland Shore, and it is absolutely back to what Guild Wars 2 does the best. It is a beautiful map. It is full of life. the first thing we're doing really is being introduced to the Coden that live there, learning about their cultures, learning about how they live, seeing their massive cities and their structures and stuff like that. There was so much world building done in this first map that I'm super excited to see what else they have for the rest of the expansion area. But it's definitely what was missing from Secrets of the Obscure. I'm already in love with it. I've only done like maybe 2 missions in the new map, so there's a lot more to come. The first mission that we get when we enter there is kind of exploring the area. And then we stumble upon a wild warclaw, which needs to be calmed. The Coden show us how they've become allies with these warclaws and help us calm it down, at which point we get it as a mount, which makes tons of sense. It's a beautiful way to integrate the mount to the story, and it's a really interesting way to kind of get a glimpse at how the Coden interact with these creatures in the land. What's particularly nice, too, is I have done almost nothing with the Warclaws since they've been introduced to Guild Wars 2, which has been a while. So it really, once again, felt like I was getting access to a new mount that I've never used before, which I think has added a lot of value to me personally for these expansions. Similar to the previous one that had the dragon, I hadn't used that either. And I know there's a lot of people who unlock these like day one have probably been using them for years, and it's a little bit different, but for me, it felt very new, which was great. So we bring that Warclaw back. We go to the Harvest Den, which is the first kind of Coden settlement that we see. And that's where we learn a lot about the kind of main characters of the Coden we'll probably be interacting with, and some of their culture, which tells us about how they use spears, which integrates the actual weapon that we're getting this expansion with the story really well. And I think this is the most they've been able to tie it with the story because of the fact that every single class is getting the same weapon. You know, when it used to be elite specs, you could have some side quests or some subtle hints about the elite specs in the story, but not every player was going to resonate with it because it was, based on your class. With everyone getting the spear, you can actually have it be story steps and part of the progress of unlocking it, which was done really well and felt really good. And this is where they tackled one of the biggest pet peeves I had about the Secrets of the Obscure, because instead of reaching a arbitrary green bar that we needed to fill with events around this first map, we instead had to unlock the first mastery of the new Coden mastery track that allowed us to use spears. And to do that, we needed to get enough experience to level our mastery points, which, at its heart is the same general idea of the green bar, but instead it makes experience relevant again and gives way more freedom in terms of what can be done to unlock this. It's also much more reminiscent of what they've done in previous expansions. When I think of Heart of Thorns, the amount of time I needed to just grind experience to get masteries to unlock gliding or jumping mushrooms to get to different places. Those are some of my core memories that are really good about Heart of Thorns. So we're jumping back into that, which is great. So what I did with that is I was like, okay, let's just go and explore the map. I did some events, which would have been similar to the green bar, that did happen. But I also just did some world exploration. I went and found some viewpoints, some points of interest. I even did some of, I think they're called adventures, the like mini games that I haven't really paid attention to much since Heart of Thorns when I needed to unlock so much. And I did it. There was 2 of them. There was one where you fly around as a crow and get to see a lot of the map from the sky. And there was one where you get to be a fish swimming down this massive river that's going over waterfalls and stuff like that. And you get to see a lot of the map through the waterways. Both of them were excellent in terms of showing me the map, and rewarded me with a tremendous amount of experience that really were, I think, half of the experience bar that I needed to unlock. And I do remember that from Heart of Thorns. I remember if you were able to get gold on some of these missions, or adventures, or whatever they're called, you get so much experience. And it really played on some of those feelings, which was really nice. So that was great. So we did that. We got the spear. I'll talk a bit more about the spear in the next video, I think. I didn't really get to play with it that much, and I'm still kind of confused about how I want to integrate it into my build with my Revenants, which I'm also not very familiar with Revenants to begin with, so there's going to be some exploring there. I guess generally though, the map itself and the story has felt really good. It's felt very, casual pace, really focused on exploration again, I think is the big thing. Whereas the previous story was very focused, I'd say, on something bad happening and trying to solve the something bad. Like we were presented with big baddies right away in the previous one, and it was kind of doom and gloom from the start. This one's got that new frontier feel to it, which I think, we just have been missing for a bit. Either way, I've really enjoyed it. I think the biggest thing that always rings through for any Guild Wars 2 expansion is the value you get. You're paying so little for these expansions. There's no monthly subscription fee. The amount of content and quality of content relative to a lot of other games is just, it's bar none. And that's the big point that I think is true no matter which Guild Wars 2 expansion I play. Like I say, Secrets of the Obscure was my least favorite Guild Wars 2 expansion, but I've also really enjoyed every Guild Wars 2 expansion up until that point. So they were bound to have one that wasn't my favorite, and I think this one, Janthir Wilds, is a step in the right direction. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe if you want to watch more MMO content. Specifically, we'll be doing some more Guild Wars 2 coverage as I get deeper into the expansion. But until then, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.